Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this Claritin-infused committee meeting. Today, we've got a pretty good calendar going. Before we get started, let's see, this is Tuesday, March the 8th, and we'll go ahead and call to order. Madam Clerk, let's take the roll, please.
Representatives Baum. Here. Cochran. Here. Darby. Here. Gillespie. Here. Hakeem. Here. Parkinson. Chairman White. Here. Chairman Lafferty.
Here.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you for that. All right, members, anybody have any personal orders today? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and get started here. Item number 1 on our calendar by Leader Lamberth, being presented by Hicks. Representative Hicks, are you ready to roll with this right now?
Yes, sir, Mr.
All right, committee, could I get a motion and a second? All right, you're recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, committee. I have a amendment here that I think makes the bill, drafting code number 013848.
We've got a motion, and that is the code that I have here. Please, go ahead and give us an explanation.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. House Bill 2152 is the Give Hope Expansion Act of 2022. House Bill 2152 is about expanding new opportunities for students from ages from 16 to 24. Currently, millions of young adults in this age group is neither working nor enrolled in school, a group often referred to as opportunity youth. 12.6 of Tennesseans 16 to 24 fit into this opportunity youth category. There's an estimated 30,000 opportunity youth in Memphis alone. The Tennessee Board of Regents system of 40 colleges has proven career and technical education models which are transforming the lives of our young Tennesseans, especially those from economically distressed families. Dual credit, dual enrollment, work-based learning, and apprenticeships provide an industry certification for high school students. This bill encourages the Tennessee College of Applied Technology to establish technical middle college programs in partnerships with LEAs that permit students to earn an advanced technical certificate and a diploma by high school graduation. There are middle college models that have proven highly successful. Each of them hold a piece of the puzzle. Students have the opportunity to graduate with a post-secondary credit and nationally recognized technical certificates from a variety of industries and develop employability skills such as problem solving, project completion, research, communication, time management, and critical thinking. The dual enrollment grant will be available beginning in the student's freshman year of high school. This change will provide enough time and opportunity for the students who are ready to earn a work-ready certificate by graduation. House Bill 2152 also expands the Hope non-traditional scholarship eligibility age from 25 to 24 and expands the eligibility for populations such as student veterans, single parents, certain former foster children, and expands eligibility to 1,100 students. Increases in the 2-semester awards to $5,100 for all 4 years of a student's career. This eliminates disparity between freshman, sophomore, and junior and senior awards. Previously, a $1,000 difference. And this covers about half of the cost for the university's tuition, and this amount has not been raised since 2008, so that's a long time. The bill increases the Hope Scholarship Award to 2-year community colleges from $3,000 to $3,200. House Bill 2152 amends the Hope Foster Child Tuition Grant to align with the foster child requirements for federal financial aid programs. The bill lowers the age requirement for grants from 14 to 13. This bill also helps close the gap of adult students by expanding the Access TN Reconnect grant to students who are 23 years of age. Expands eligibility to approximately 3,200 students. Here's sort of what this bill means to me. Let me give you a little bit of a life story, real life story. When I was growing up, my father not only told me, but he told many of my friends, quote, "If you learn a trade, you will always have a job." So I learned not only one trade, but I learned several trades. At an early age, I was operating heavy equipment, carpenter work, electrician, pouring concrete, laying block. So by the age of 27, I built my own home with my own hands. Now here's the interesting part of this, and this is why this bill is so important. When life threw me a curve and addiction took over my life, having a trade really helped save my life. I was able to have a trade to feel better about myself, help me with my self-esteem, and help get me back on track and back on my feet. Now, I work with a lot of folks that's going through the same struggles. And it seems like that when they don't have something to fall back on, especially a trade, it is much, much, much harder on those folks. So that's why that, I think this bill helps fill the gap to students that's really going to need this kind of education in their future. And I thank the governor for bringing this legislation. So that's the gist of the bill, and be ready for any questions. We have folks here from higher ed and lottery department too.
Thank you for that excellent presentation and sharing that small part of your personal history with us too. That's very, very strong stuff. Let's go ahead. You all have heard an explanation of the amendment. We need to go ahead and put the amendment on the bill. All those in favor of adding amendment code 013848 to the bill, please signify by saying aye. Any opposed? No. And the ayes have it. The amendment's on the bill, and it is my understanding, as you just mentioned, you do have some people that like to speak on the bill.
If you have questions, then there's folks here that can answer those.
Okay. Let's ask the members. Members, do we have any questions on the bill for representatives from the governor's office?
Not necessarily one that would have to be out of session.
Okay. You're recognized.
Thank you, Representative Hicks, and appreciate the legislation. I think it's excellent that we're raising funding for the Hope Scholarship, and I think that our state has been very blessed recently, just with a solid economy as a result of conservative policies, and and obviously we've seen those lottery dollars increase. So I think it's great that we're getting that funding to them. Two amendments that I know that we're not putting on today. And one is where it's a tiered system, where it's where the freshmen and sophomores, everybody gets an increase. Freshmen and sophomore get a little bit less, and then juniors and seniors, there's kind of that additional incentive. I just want to say I'm a big fan of that. I like that a lot. And then there's also the amendment where if you finish that degree early in 3 years, and you still have 1 year left of Hope funding, you could use that to 1 year of grad school. So 4 years. So I just wanted to say, I really like those amendments. Again, I know we're not looking at adding those today, but just wanted to let the committee know that's something that I would very seriously look at adding in full. I just think that makes it a little. I think it adds some incentive, right? Some incentive for success. If you make it to that junior and senior year, if you keep working, you keep being successful, you get more. And we're kind of rewarding success, and I like. Any type of conservative policy, I think it kind of focuses on that success and doing better rather than just the flat amount across the board. So I would like to look at that in full. Like I say, I'm not a no. I'm fine with the increase in the Hope Scholarship, but I do like it. I do like that funding being tied to success and rewarding as you move forward in that college process. So thank you very much for bringing the bill. I'm in support. But again, just wanted to let the committee know I'm going to look very strongly about maybe bringing those amendments in the full committee, because I think it it's kind of congruent with the way we usually do things around here with rewarding success. Thank you.
Members, anybody else have any questions or comments? Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. Just a comment. One aspect I really like about this bill is the increased dual enrollments down to 9th grade. We lose so many of our students from 9th to 12th grade, and by captivating them on subjects such as you said, construction, is going to go a long ways. I mean to ask you, I'll do it here, I meant to ask you just in the hallway. You're from Upper East Tennessee, and I was up there visiting Mountain City. And in the high school there, they have a class teach young people how to build homes. Are you familiar with that? Have you been a part of that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I've been a part of that sort of in a small way. They do an excellent job.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah,
You're recognized.
they had like 40 acres donated to the high school, and they build really nice houses, the high school students, and then they sell them, and then they reap the rewards. I think the school does on that. But excellent program, and we can't have enough construction people right now with everything growing. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this opens up, I mean, we're seeing that we have got to get students started earlier in a career. And, you know, some people like me, we need a reason to learn. We need some activity that we can do with our hands, and it expands our learning. You know, I was taught how to do these trades by people just like me. So it's time that we start passing that on, and that's something that we've sort of neglected to do. And this bill opens up a lot of area to really expand on that. So I'm excited about it.
Thank you.
And just, I think everybody's in agreement up here that this is something that's overdue and needed. I know one of the things that got me motivated, one of the things that I ran on was we need to expand these opportunities for these kids, and I appreciate you bringing this bill today. With that, do I have any other? We've got a question on the bill. Without objection, we'll be voting on the bill. All those in favor of passing House Bill 2152 as amended onto Education Full, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the ayes have it. Thank you for your time today.
Thank
Well
you,
done, sir.
Chairman. Thank you, committee.
And next up, we have item number 2, House Bill 2157. Looks like Leader Gant is ready to present. Can I get a motion on the bill? And motion and second, properly recognized. Mr. Leader Gant, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman and then committee. This legislation is being brought by Governor Lee, and Leader Lambert and I are proud to sponsor the legislation. And what this legislation does, it creates an Institute for American Civics at the University of Tennessee in Knoxville. The institute will initially be housed at the Baker Center at UT Knoxville and will operate as an academic unit within the University of Tennessee. The institute may enroll students into a degree-granting program, provide general education courses to other students at the University of Tennessee, hire faculty and staff, host events, provide internships, and other relevant experiences to students and the general public. The institute will foster deeper understanding of the structures and institutions of federal, state, and local government. Further the understanding of principles and philosophies that contributed to the foundation and development of the United States and the state of Tennessee. Promote civil discourse and constructive debate. Enhance education in fields of politics, economics, philosophy, American history, American government, and other related fields as appropriate, with a focus on the rights and responsibilities of American citizenship, fundamental democratic principles, and how those principles are expressed in our federal, state, and local institutions. Also provide nonpartisan resources to students, faculty, state government agencies, and the general public regarding civic affairs. Foster civic engagement through full and fair discussion that is intentional in promoting civil dialogue among those holding conflicting points of view. Assist in ensuring that the University of Tennessee serves as a robust marketplace of ideas for all students and faculty. This bill requires the UT president, with the approval from the governor and speakers, to appoint 13-member board of fellows for the institute by September of 2022, of which 9 must be professors or administrators at U.S. higher education institutions. 2 must be former appointed or elected officials from different political parties, and 2 must be members of the board of the Baker Center. The UT president will choose a director from recommendations by the board of fellows by March of 2023. And the degrees that could come from this are obviously flexible, but you can expect a BA to start, but potentially this could move into a doctorate program as well. So, Mr. Chairman, I submit this back to you for any questions, and we also have governor's staff here today. If there's a question I can't answer, that I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought on that one. But anyway, I've got the governor's staff here that can answer questions if I can't. So,
Thank you for that thorough investigation. And if you'll give me just a second, Representative Hakeem, please. This is the amendment that you just explained, 014755.
makes the bill.
All right, let's add that to the bill. All those in favor? Oh, I'm sorry, need a motion on the bill and a second? All right, with motion and second, let's go ahead and take the vote on that. All those in favor of adding 14755 to the bill indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And the ayes have it, so the amendment is now on the bill. And Representative Hakeem, I believe you had a question.
All right, thank you. Let me first say, Leader Gant, that we thank you for bringing this bill on behalf of the governor and the leaders of the legislature. And, you know, in my mind, I want to see if we could start this next week. It's something needed. It's needed that bad. So as soon as we can get this going, I think we need to move forward on it. I would like to ask in regards to the professors that would be a part of, do we call it a board or?
Yeah, it is. It's a governing board that works
Okay.
with the president.
Okay.
There's a name for it, and I'm missing it here for some reason. But
Now, is this just for professors from UT, or is this from different institutions, private and public? Just trying to understand who those professors would be.
yeah, it's up to. I'll tell you what. Before we get too much in the weeds, why don't we just have General Counsel come up and answer some of these questions, because I don't want to overspeak and it not be exactly the right answer that needs to be. So if we could go out of session and call Jonathan Subcommittee with the Governor's General Counsel.
We are out of session. Mr. Subcommittee, if you would, please.
Thank you, Leader Gant. Thank
And I think you've been through this routine before, but if you could, please identify yourself and who you're with for the record.
Thank you. Jonathan Subcommittee, General Counsel for the Governor. Representative Hakeem, I think the goal is to get a nationwide sampling of professors, so I would hope there'd be plenty of representation from Tennessee, but it's not limited to that. And the goal is to just get outstanding and distinguished scholars who can bring different perspectives and ensure that there's a lot of input into who's out there in terms of academics and what ideas are important to focus on to ensure people are getting a good civics education.
You're recognized.
Well, again, I'd like to thank all of you in this process. I think it's something that's needed now, and as soon as we can get this started, I look forward to it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Do we have any other questions for council? Seeing none, I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And we'll go back into session without objection. All right, we're back in session. Any other questions? Representative Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Sponsor, for bringing the bill up. I just a quick note. I remember, a few years ago, 12 to be exact, when I first got here, my first bill that I tried to run, of course, I was going to change the world, right? And I'm still in that process. It hadn't happened yet. But my first bill was to put civics, local civics in 6th grade, state civics in the 7th grade, and federal civics in the 8th grade, right? And the department ran me off with rakes and pitchforks and told me, "Don't you ever try to touch the curriculum as a legislator." So I'm glad to see that you're doing what you're doing, and hopefully we can get it, find a way to ensure that these things are implemented in the earlier grades, because I think that if I don't know how we expect our next generations of leadership to come up, Chairman Reagan, if they don't know how our system of government works. And so, hopefully, those that are in the department and the governor and the administration, I see you, Counselor, you can take this back and ensure that we, start teaching our children as early as possible on how our system of government works. Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir. Any reply? You're recognized.
Yeah, thank you very much for those comments. I want to go back, I think it was Representative Hakeem. The board is actually called a Board of Fellows, if that answers your question. So
Okay.
that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Appreciate the clarification. Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. No, I just wanted to congratulate the Leader Gant. I remember this conversation was going on about a year and a half ago. Thanks for following through with this. And I also want to thank UT and especially President Boyd for following up on that conversation and actually making this happen, because it took a lot of pieces falling together, especially at a university's level. So thank you for doing this. As a great piece of legislation.
Any other comments? I'm going to go ahead and jump in. I, too, am grateful to see this. We are, in the history of nations, we are still but a baby as far as all that goes. And for whatever reasons in this country, we have forgotten our beginnings and what we're supposed to be. And to bring that dialogue back to the fore is just a huge event, I think, for our state. So I'm grateful as well. Anybody else? Seeing no more questions, we'll go ahead and take the vote. All in favor of passing House Bill 2157 indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? And the ayes have it. That's going on to Education Administration full.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Committee, Chairman.
Next up on our list, we have House Bill 2316 by Chairman Reagan. Can I get a motion? And motion and then seconded. Chairman Reagan, you are recognized, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Committee. I bring before you a bill that straightforwardly has the purpose of preventing males from participating in public higher education sports that are designated for females. A lot of explanation goes behind that, but that is the core purpose of the bill. It allows injunctive relief. It is for middle school, high school, post-secondary school levels, and it creates a one-year window for students or guardian of a student, if they're a minor, from the date of violation to take corrective action. And intercollegiate teams designated for females, women, or girls will not be open to students of the male sex. This does not apply to co-ed or mixed sports designated by the institution. The determination of the identification is made on the basis of the student's original birth certificate. In short, biological males must compete against biological males, and biological females compete against biological females. With that explanation, I do have an amendment, if the chair would permit the addition of that.
And that is an untimely filed amendment. Any objections? Seeing none, that amendment number is that 14924.
That is correct, sir.
Okay. Can I get a motion on the amendment? Motion. And second? Second. All those in favor of adding amendment 14924, please indicate by saying aye. 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 Any opposed? And the ayes have it. The amendment's on the bill. And
thank you. By way of explanation of what the amendment does, if you have the bill in front of you, turn to page 2, and subparagraph D there is eliminated by that amendment. And essentially what that does is eliminate a private cause of action with damages for violations on this. Now, let me make sure that we're clear on possible confusion. Paragraph C, which is the first part of the bill, does allow a cause of action for an injunction, and it allows those that bring the action and prevail to recover attorney's fees. So with that clarity, as I have explained the bill, I stand ready to answer questions. By the way, Mr. Chair, I do have witnesses if the committee wishes to hear them.
All right. Let's go ahead and ask the committee. Do we have any questions for the chairman? Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chairman. I want to make sure I understood the amendment. So you remove the cause of action clause that was in there. I know this gave higher ed a little pain, so this is exactly what we're doing here, right?
Yes, but there are two causes of action here. The portion that was eliminated was for a private cause of action with damages and other relief under the law. The portion that was not eliminated is the first portion, which says that a cause of action can be brought for an injunction to correct the problem. So the one case is for damages as perceived, and that's no longer part of the bill. But the other portion is to get a court, if necessary, to enforce the purposes of this bill.
Thank you.
That clear that up for you, Chairman?
For now. Thank you.
Okay. All right. So let me try and say it maybe another way. There won't be monetary possibilities for people to pursue, but there could be injunctive remedies to get the court to say, you must start doing this.
That's
Is that-
correct.
All right, thank you for that. And I understand you've got a couple of speakers that would like to come forward. If you'd like to go ahead and bring them forward, we'll go out of session. Chairman Reagan, if you'll supervise the red dots, I'll give some instructions. There is a red light or a red dot on the microphone or on the pad in front of you. Make sure that's on when you choose to speak. And if you would, identify yourself for the record.
Jasmine Garner.
We'll start right here next to the podium. Ladies first, and we'll work out to my left.
I'm Jasmine Garner.
Welcome today, please.
Thank you, Chairman and Committee, for allowing me to speak today. My name is Jasmine Garner. I'm 15 years old. I play softball for a small high school in Hamilton County. I've been playing softball for 11 years. I started playing when I was 4 years old, and softball means so much to me. Growing up, the softball field was neutral ground where I got to see my mom, my dad, and all my grandparents. When my mother went away and the state of Tennessee decided that it was in my best interest to go live with my dad, softball was my happy place. Playing softball gave me a sense of stability when everything in my life was turned upside down. I'm not alone. I like to think that I'm here speaking on behalf of all the girls in Tennessee who have chaotic home lives, but when they are on the field with their coach and their teammates, all is well in the world. I think about softball constantly. Looking forward to softball season keeps me motivated all throughout the year. Because of softball, I know I must strive for academic excellence, and I need to stay in top physical shape. I am 5 feet tall, and this year I think I'm probably one of the smallest, if not the smallest, team members at my high school. But that's okay because my teammates and I all work very hard to stay at the top of our game. We need to have sports categories divided on the basis of sex because if you were born male, you were stronger, faster, and more agile because of testosterone. Testosterone gives a boy a performance advantage that is insurmountable for girls to overcome. When boys who identify as girls compete in girls' sports, our sense of security is taken away and our chances of getting a starting position are greatly diminished. This isn't just about winning a game or a trophy or a title. This is about a scholarship that I could miss out on, a scholarship which will allow me to pursue my dream, to go to a college and major in social work so I can help other young girls overcome the obstacle that they will face because life is hard. Please don't make it harder for us by making the girls fight against the boys. I'm asking you to vote yes on House Bill 2316 because we need the state of Tennessee to protect their most treasured citizens, their daughters. Thank you for allowing me to share my story.
Thank you for that presentation. I appreciate, too, that softball field being a happy place. There's times I get back from Knoxville from this place and can't wait to go there and smash a ball with a bat. Please, would you like to go next?
Jenny Bussey. I'm a former Division I athlete. I've competed at the highest level collegiately. I've been in the weight room with males and females. I have seen with my own eyes that no matter how hard women train, biologically, they will not be able to compete fairly with men. This is something we should protect. I have coached women's volleyball for the past 5 years. Athletics has been a very big part of my life from a very young age. I was the 6th athlete in my family to play Division I volleyball. In my family, the only way for us to go to college was if we performed well enough to earn a scholarship to play at the college level. I wanted to do my part to protect the right for women to compete against women. It is a known fact that if you are born a male, biologically, you are going to be faster and stronger. If you are born male, you should have to compete in male sports. I want to protect the right for my future kids to be able to compete against their same sex. I also want to protect those girls that are just like me that need a way to pay for their education. If you allow athletes that were biologically born a male to be given a scholarship designated for a biologically born woman, we are doing a very big disservice for the upcoming female generation. There will be many opportunities missed because of that reason alone. I myself have competed against males. No matter how hard I try, no matter how many hours I spent training, they have always beat me and will continue to beat me. I want to help protect the young ladies I coach, my little sister that's 15 years old, and the generations to come. We should have to compete against the gender we were born as. If we do not draw the line now, in the future, there will no longer be women's sports. Everything will be male sports.
Thank you for your testimony. And last but not least.
Hi, my name is Jen Garinger. I am a mother, I'm a coach, I'm also a former Division I athlete. I work with many athletes. I run a volleyball club out of Clarksville, Tennessee. I have over 150 girls. 95% of them want to play in college, and I don't want to take that away from them. Our staff works really hard. Realistically, we understand not all 95% will go to college. I know that's a really hard feat to make, but we want to do everything that we can to get them there or to keep their dreams alive as long as possible. I have a daughter who's 14 years old and potentially wants to play in college. I want her to have a fair chance at that. I also have a son. Both of my children played multi-sports, so I have seen the change post-puberty, after the boys have changed. Watching my son, his 6th grade year to his 8th grade year, was mind-blowing how big they got. The boys that are in the gym in the 8th grade, sometimes I confuse them as high school or even adults. I've been coaching for over 25 years. USA Volleyball currently has no restrictions on co-ed play in the 12 and under age groups because that is pre-puberty. And I think that's great. I want to have boys and girls playing together until that point. After that, it becomes safety concerns. Not even to mention them taking positions of the girls at the college level. The opportunities now being offered to our young women via participation in collegiate sports is not just important, it's also life-changing for these girls. Allowing biological men to compete in a collegiate women's sport will delete completely the years of literal blood, sweat, and tears of an entire generation of young women. We cannot allow this. We must stand for our young women and fight for their rights to equal opportunity on the playing field. I would like to protect our young women and keep the courts and fields of play fair for them as they enter college. So I'm in favor of House Bill 2316.
Thank you for your testimony. Got one more gentleman like to speak today.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm actually going to pass this week. I'm going to let this testimony stand for themselves.
Okay. Well done, ladies. Thank you for taking the time and making the trip down here to see us. Appreciate you.
Good job. Thank you.
Back in session. Chairman Reagan, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and committee. Closing comments. I'm sure all of you have seen news reports about a certain young man who changed his name to a female name and now dominates Ivy League swimming events in the women's category. I'm sure you've also seen news reports about a young male in Connecticut who changed his name and identified as a female and proceeded to take 15 of the 17 high school women's titles. that's just a classic example of what this bill is designed to prevent. The testimony you've heard, I think, puts the exclamation mark on this particular bill's purpose. With that explanation, I stand ready to answer questions.
Thank you for that. Committee, do we have Representative Baum? Do you have a question?
The amendment answered my question. Thank you for the amendment, Chairman Reagan.
Okay. Anyone else? Seeing no further questions. Members, all those in favor of passing House Bill 2316 indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? And the ayes have it. Thank you, Chairman. You're going to be moving on to Education Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Committee.
Next up, we have House Bill 2739 by myself, Lafferty, and I'm going to have to pass the gavel over to you, Chairman White.
Okay, members, we're on item number 4, House Bill 2739 by Chairman Lafferty. Do I have a motion and a second for discussion? Motion and second? Second. Okay, you have a motion and a second. You may begin. I see you have an amendment. It doesn't look like it rewrites the bill. Do you want to explain the bill first or add the amendment?
Let's go ahead and add the amendment.
Okay, members, he has an amendment. It's 13801. All those in favor of adding the amendment to the bill for discussion? It says 13852. I have 13801. Okay. Oh, it's the one below there. Okay. Members, is Amendment 13852 that we're discussing. Do I have a motion to add the amendment to the bill? Motion. Second. Do I have a second? Second. I have a second. Okay. All those in favor of adding 13852 to House Bill 2739 indicate by saying aye. Aye. Where is everybody today? Okay. I got enough ayes. Okay. The amendment's been added to your bill. We're now back on HB 2739 by Chairman Lafferty. You're recognized for explanation.
Thank you for that, Mr. Chairman. This bill is fairly straightforward. Currently in Tennessee Code, if you are intent on going to a college, a four-year college in the state of Tennessee on a promised scholarship, you are allowed what they call a gap year. It's 16 months. Before you have to fill out the paperwork, get straight, and get enrolled. Currently, with our two-year schools, you are not allowed that convenience. You are expected to go ahead, fill out the paperwork, be ready to go straight out of high school into college. I'm simply trying to bring this into alignment with what we do with the Hope Scholarship, and this idea was brought to me by a young lady back in the district, and I believe she might want to be recognized to talk about the bill for just a moment.
Okay, members, with that explanation, just hold on just one minute, then we'll go out of session. Any members, you have any question on the bill before we go out of session? Anyone else? No objection. We're out of session. Chairman Lafferty?
I'd like to welcome Miss Annika Schwartz, please. I hope I got the last name right. Where do you like?
You can stand at the podium right there, be fine. Just recognize your name and who you are and what you do for the AV.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you. This? Yep. Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman, thank you, committee. My name is Annika Schultz, and I am the author of Bill 2739. May I please address the floor?
Ma'am?
May I please address the floor?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
You're recognized.
So I'm the author of this bill. I originally wrote this bill because I saw a dire need in community colleges all across Tennessee. The Tennessee Promise Scholarship itself is wonderful. It's allowing students to be able to attend community college when they otherwise would not be able to afford to go to college. However, the bill itself has many stipulations that are causing students to miss out on the scholarship entirely. This is causing students to miss out on opportunities to pursue education. This should not be happening. And so I have written an amendment, that's House Bill 2739. I have written an amendment that allows 16 months after the original deadline for students to be able to apply for the scholarship. So the problem that we're seeing with this bill is that students are missing the deadline to apply for the scholarship and thus missing out on the scholarship entirely. They cannot reapply for the scholarship. They just miss out on it entirely. We're seeing this is a problem because when students are only a senior in high school, they're expected to apply for the scholarship by November of their senior year. This is before they've even graduated high school. And so they have no idea what they want to do. They have no idea where they want to go to school. And we can't be expecting 17-year-olds and 18-year-olds to know what they want to do for the rest of their life. So students aren't applying for the scholarship. Then they graduate high school and they realize, oh, now I know where I want to go to school and I know what I want to do. And so then they go to apply for the scholarship, but they've already lost it. And so this bill is a big deal to students in Tennessee who are wanting to pursue education. If we want to encourage students to be able to go to college, to be able to pursue higher education, we need to allow them this additional 16 months to be able to apply for the scholarship. And with that, I urge all of you to please vote in favor of this bill. I'll be happy to take any questions you guys have.
Okay, members, while we're out of session, would anyone like to ask a question of our guests before us? Yes, sir, you're recognized. Representative Cochran.
Thank you, and thank you very much for coming to speak with us. So tell me, did it happen? Did this particular situation happen to you, or just to people that you know, where maybe after that deadline passed and it resulted in the loss of that scholarship? What motivated your interest in it?
Yeah, so this situation did not happen to me. However, I am attending a community college. I go to Pellissippi State Community College in Knoxville. But I do have a really good friend of mine that she graduated high school and she decided she just didn't want to go to school. And so she didn't apply for the scholarship, and now she's 20 and she realizes, I don't want to work at Olive Garden for the rest of my life. I want to go to school, but she missed out on the scholarship entirely. And her story is just one of many who I have met and talked to that have lost a scholarship and can't regain the scholarship.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate you shedding a little light on that. I think the other side of the argument, people are concerned maybe if you provide that gap year, then maybe they lose interest and they never apply for college. To your point, though, I think there is a very glaring gap currently between Tennessee Promise and then Tennessee Reconnect, because you can't do that Tennessee Reconnect, I think, maybe until you're 24. So
Yes.
there's several years there where folks have the potential to fall between the cracks if they missed what you mentioned earlier, that initial deadline. So thank you for coming and testifying and bringing our attention to the issue.
Yes.
Thank you.
Representative Gillespie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you so much for being here. Kudos to you taking the initiative to come up here and speak to us, but also in writing and authoring the bill. I was just curious, and I completely understand where you're coming from, and just to echo on Representative Cochran's, just why 16 months? Where did that come from?
So the reason we've instituted the 16 months is because that actually just mirrors the Hope Scholarship, and so that way they're more in alignment. And also, to Representative Cochran's point of view, I would like to say that yes, while some students might take a gap year and then not return to college, we're also seeing the opposite, that some students at age 17 and 18 when they graduate high school are not ready to attend a college. And so by giving them these extra few months of 16 months or less to decide if they want to go to school, that oftentimes gives them the more mental capacity and ability to then decide, yes, now I am ready to go and attend school.
Any other members? I guess I should have set up there so I could see everybody. Anybody else raise their hand and want to speak to our guest? Seeing none. Well, thank you so very, very much. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
We're back in session. I would like to ask if the bill sponsor would allow. I would like to ask T-HAC. I need to ask them a couple questions if they mind coming forward. Any objection to going back out of session? Back out of session. Mr. Hanneman, Representative T-HAC, I do have a few questions. As far as the original purpose, our guest made a very good case. You know, we totally understand what she's saying. But when Tennessee Promise was created, it was created for what particular reason? Could you give us a little bit of background?
Sure. So Tennessee Promise is our, I think maybe.
There you go. It's on.
Yes, a little closer. Tennessee Promise was really created to capture a part of our student population who were opting not to attend college, period. It is not a low-income scholarship. In fact, if you're low-income, chances are you're not going to see Tennessee Promise dollars because we layer on other aid before Tennessee Promise comes in after that. What we were trying to capture were those students for whom there were a number of decision tree factors, and if we could pull all those away and leave it down to just cost, and then we pull that off, a student is left with, do I want to go to college or do I not want to go to college? And then that's a decision that they can make, from that point. So pulling away all those options. The issue, and maybe the difference here between Tennessee Promise and the Hope Scholarship, is Tennessee Promise is really the entire structure, how it's managed by Tennessee Achieves and AIRS, is really predicated on high touch, high advising, and momentum. Students are required to go to mandatory meetings, and then they file their federal financial aid forms, and then they engage in a post-secondary institution, all as a part of that same sign-up. And then they kind of slide right in, with the help of a mentor, into their college experience. That being said, I think you can see by the fiscal note, this will add students. There are students who, as the witness mentioned, who are opting not to attend, but on the back end might choose to over those 16 months. I think our concern in talking to our partnering organizations and whatnot, that there is an issue around connectivity, because eligibility will be triggered when you graduate high school. And so there won't be an option if you didn't apply for Promise to then at some point in the 16 months decide, well, maybe I want to apply for Promise. Your eligibility is triggered. And so you will need to have still gone through that application process on the front end. But maintaining connectivity with them, I think, is one of the hurdles we would have to overcome.
Thank you. So Tennessee Promise is last dollar.
Correct.
And so when you come right out of high school, you apply with the FAFSA and you get all the different federal grants and all that, and then whatever's left over is what the Promise kicks in.
Right. And I mentioned that certain segment of the population we were going for, that group of students who weren't going to go to college, and where cost was really a driver. Tennessee Promise is really paying for them. And this is your middle income to higher income students. If you're a low income student, chances are you're going to be eligible for the Pell Grant, which the Pell Grant alone will usually cover the cost of a community college or a technical school tuition. Then you layer on to Tennessee's version of the Pell Grant, which is the Tennessee Student Assistance Award, and if they are also happen to be Hope Scholarship eligible, those three levels of aid get layered on to a student's tuition and fees before Promise then comes in on the back door. So arguably, Promise is paying far more financial aid for your middle income students who weren't otherwise going to go to college. If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And as far as the mentorship that's in Tennessee Promise, is that lost if you don't go in and use it right away?
As I understand it, and I may not be the best person to answer this because I don't work for the partnering organizations that we use, but as I understand it, that mentoring is really reliant on kind of continuous connectivity. A student coming out of high school meets with their mentor at one of the mandatory meetings put on by the AIRS Foundation or Tennessee Achieves, and from that point on, that student's connectivity with higher education potential and prospects is really tied to their communications with their mentor. Sustaining that communication for 16 months after graduation might prove difficult.
Thank you. Members, anybody else? Representative Cochran?
Lou, I had a quick follow-up on that, and this is probably not something that you're going to have right off the top of your head. I would be curious to know if we aren't talking about low-income students, just maybe again, average middle-income student who takes advantage of the Tennessee Promise, goes to a community college. Do you know how much per year or how much per semester that assistance averages? I mean, roughly, ballpark?
I think the average award is about 1,100
That's per
so?
semester or per year?
per year.
Per year. Okay. All right. Okay. I didn't know the answer to that, and I'm just curious. I was just trying to, again, I think I get the concern. Like I think I understand the counter argument, but I do think it does. The bill brings attention to that gap between Promise and Reconnect, and you could have folks who, for whatever reason missed the boat, missed that date, and then again a few months later, like, well, gosh, I'd like to go back to college, but now I can't. And so the reason I asked that question, I just wonder if there is some sort of this is not a question for you, I'm just thinking out loud, but just some sort of happy medium there where maybe it's a reduced amount or something like that, but something that could still help fill that gap between Promise and Reconnect. But thanks for answering that.
Representative Parkinson, you have a question for our guest?
I do. Thank you for being
Yes,
here.
sir.
So I had a constituent, that was consistently asking me for help in regards to this problem of Promise and the gap between Promise and Connect. And I remember asking or trying to find out, how did we land on the age of 24 for Reconnect? And I don't think I got an answer for that. How did we decide that 24 was the age for Reconnect?
So we typically, prior to the outset of this committee meeting, because committee action since then has changed things a little bit, Reconnect is tied to the federal financial aid form's definitions of independent, which independent typically is age 24, although you can be independent also if you are a single parent, a veteran, emancipated as a youth or a foster youth. And so, when we first set up Reconnect, as many financial aid kind of programmatic implementations are, it's tied to what monies we had available. The Reconnect is funded out of the lottery expenditures. It doesn't have its own account and earnings, if you will, like the Tennessee Promise does. And so 24 sounded like the right place to land. There was precedent because of independent status. I will say, though, with the administration's lottery bill that moved out of here earlier this committee, one of the components of that is to address, as you were talking about, this gap, recognizing that there is a gap for students, particularly on the Hope Scholarship. You do have 16 months, so say that gets you to 19 and a half, and then the 24. That bill that moved out of here earlier brings that age down to 23, which actually the application cycle captures people who are 22, because as you're applying, it's when you would go to school. And so we are kind of making an effort to close that gap. I will say also, for some of our technical school financial aid, there is no gap. And so those you're kind of eligible for those irrespective of age. That doesn't specifically address the issue around Promise students per se, because they don't have that option on the 16 months currently. But there is an effort to close that gap. We're moving down to 23, and then as monies become available, possibly there's room to expand that in the future.
You recognized?
Thank you, sir. I'm watching you, Chairman. You mentioned in this bill that the fiscal note determines that there are going to be a lot more students that will be applying. Is that what you, or so will we gain more students that are tapping in because they've had that break because of this legislation?
So the fiscal note, I would say, posed an interesting question. One, we have projections and we have kind of a way to develop what the increased population would look like. And we've done that. So we've kind of figured how many students take a gap year, how many of those would have been Promise eligible, because we have patterns of practice, for the Hope Scholarship, it already has a gap year. And we can kind of look at our data and see who's eligible. We can also kind of estimate ballpark what would be the take-up rate at some point during those 16 months. And that's where the fiscal note comes from. We have kind of, here's a a good guess, but estimate on how many students would take up within a semester of high school graduation, 2 semesters, 3 semesters, and so forth. What we don't have, and what is a much harder kind of calculation to make, is if you provide students an opportunity to defer coming, how many don't come? And so, you know, if the promise is predicated on momentum coming out of high school, and then you give them a 16-month kind of window to either vacillate or to go and find other opportunities or whatever, and then they opt not to come into college, well, then you've lost some students who would have otherwise participated if they had to go right away. And so that part, you know, was really too difficult for us to kind of calculate as opposed to those who we would pick up.
And
Follow
so,
up?
thank you, sir. So how many more students is it saying that we're going to pick up?
I don't have the fiscal note in front of me. The fiscal note,
Somebody
I think,
got the fiscal
identifies-
note in here. We're in this committee. I'm sure the fiscal note is in here.
Yes, for the fiscal note on this particular amendment?
Yes, sir. And you know, I'm really looking to see how many more students will take advantage of this if this bill is passed. That's the question I'm trying to ask.
I'm sorry, repeat the question.
Yeah, the question I was trying to ask is how many more students are gonna take advantage of this if this bill is passed? Will it be more students that we don't have that take advantage of it? I know you said we couldn't quantify who would choose to exercise the gap, but those that will there be new students? I'm asking that. That's the question I want to know. Will there be new students? Will there be new students that take advantage of this opportunity?
I can respond to that from the figures that I know. So the question would be whether we pick up more students by allowing a gap year from Tennessee Promise, or do we lose more? In 2020, when COVID hit, we gave that 1-year gap year because of COVID. There were 20,000 students that were eligible that year from our high schools, eligible, but we gave that gap year. Only 500 took advantage of it the following spring. So we lost, we didn't gain.
Right. And I appreciate that, but we're talking about COVID. Nobody knew what they were doing in 2020, March of 2020 to be exact, when it came to COVID. We had no idea. All of us were spending. We didn't even know if we were coming in here. And so, but now that there is no COVID, well, strike that from the record, y'all. Now that we're out of that part of COVID and people are returning, to some form of normalcy, has there not been any type of prediction fiscally as to whether or not we will gain more students with this or not?
Mr. Hanneman?
Well, I think that there is a fiscal note is an indication that some students will be picked up, because the fiscal note is based on the fact that students who are opting not to enroll right away will enroll at some point over the course of those 16 months. It's probably worth saying also, though, that those estimates are really based on the Hope Scholarship population, which is a different population of students that are meeting different criteria.
All right. Okay. And so, I've actually been converted on this bill because I look at every opportunity that we give, any of our students in Tennessee or potential students in Tennessee, the opportunity to tap in. I think we should. And, it goes to everything that we've been working towards, Drive to 55, during the Haslam administration, and, opportunities at, being certified and our TCATs and everything else. Then I also look at, life has this way of throwing you a hardball curve when you least suspect it. And, then you look at the transitional nature of some of the communities that we serve, and the people that may need to work for a second to help to pay bills at home, and then I also look at, and Lou, I know you're gonna and you don't have to, I'm just giving you a way out. You don't have to. But, you know, those young ladies that may be pregnant. And I know there, you know, y'all, we've been here before with Representative Lamar's bill, and there are procedures, right? But if they don't have to go through requesting a waiver, and this is available to them, they you don't have to, Chairman. You don't have to if you don't want to, right? And if they don't have to go through requesting a waiver, and you know, this 16 months is already in it, you know, is available to them. I say it's a great opportunity for us to pull in more students that may have otherwise not have been at the moment able to tap in. So I'm a new convert. So thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Hanneman, do you want to respond to anything the representative said?
If there was a question, I will just say, you know, per Representative Parkinson's comments around legislation that moved last year, you know, those young women are certainly eligible for the scholarship irrespective, because as single parents, they are independents.
Thank you. And also, I do want to point out that there are TSAC does give waivers for medical reasons, and so you can get a waiver. Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone have any questions more for Mr. Hanneman? Yes, sir. You had a further comment.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, just, you know, one last comment. You know, the Tennessee Promise Scholarship funding is something that we do administer, but the actual program itself and that, you know, maintaining that line of communication with prospective students is really handled by our Promise organizations, Tennessee Achieves and AIRS. And so, you know, how this would impact, you know, their operations downstream, I would certainly want to leave to them to make comment on.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing nobody else's hand up, we're back in session. Let me ask the bill sponsor, did anyone else sign up on your bill as chairman of the committee to speak? No? Okay. Okay, members, we're back in session. Further discussion on the House Bill 2739. Yes, sir, you're recognized.
Thank you for that. I did not recognize how much conversation this bill would end up drawing when I started doing this. We touched on a lot of different things. Young people sorting through life, trying to figure out what they want to do. Other things that happen in life that may cause you to have to postpone. Something that I didn't bring up, haven't brought up yet, that I want to throw out there. I don't know that it'll change any minds. When we have programs like this, and anybody that knows me well knows that I'm talk about markets a little bit. I understand the incentives for wanting to get the momentum of the kid going out of high school and into college. That makes sense. But what we forget to talk about is we end up taking those kids away from whatever other work might be out there. If any of you have been out to dinner on a Friday night and stood in line for 30 or 40 minutes while there's 6 or 8 tables sitting there that are clearly being unused, those tables are unused because they don't have enough people to fill those roles. Now, I'm not saying that this high school to college transition is the reason for that. What I am trying to illustrate is when we start squeezing the economy in one place, in this case, moving kids straight from high school into college, they are taken away from some other place, whether that's waiting tables, being a delivery driver, working construction, whatever that may be. We create these little bubbles in the economy that aren't seen on the front end, but they are definitely there. I don't think you can deny that when you take one route, the other route gets lost. I wanted to add that to the discussion as I come up here and ask the members for their support on this bill. There are other economic consequences that we don't consider, that these kids having this gap, they may find that job of a lifetime without a college education and may find a way to go on to make a nice living at it. With that, I'll close. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Also, members, I do have one comment, but I'm going to recognize other people first. Representative Parkinson, and then we go to, Representative Baum.
Thank you, Chairman White. Chairman Lafferty, I think what some of us are trying to figure out is whether your bill would ultimately result in more people going on to college or fewer. There is a concern that if we provide this gap year, that it will result in some students disengaging, and it could result in fewer people going on to college. Having said that, though, there is a fiscal note, which would seem to be contradictory. If it's going to cost the state more money, then that would suggest more people are going to college. But I have read the fiscal note, and I don't think that the fiscal note is providing an opinion about whether more students will go on to college or fewer students. I think the fiscal note is just saying eligibility increases, and that could result in an increased expenditure for the state. It's possible for eligibility to increase, but enrollment to actually decrease. Is there anything you can tell us that would help us resolve this debate about whether your bill would result ultimately in more people going on to college or fewer people?
You recognize, Chairman.
Thank you for the question. And here I am, I like to talk about markets, and I'm talking to an economics professor. So as I understood the question, fewer people, more people going to college is the baseline of it. That is an intense focus in this state, has been for a while. Back to my comments previously, just because we direct kids to go to college, is that necessarily the best outcome for those kids when we've got tens of thousands of kids that average $20,000 in college debt and get degrees in things that frankly aren't marketable? They end up going to college because they're told they're expected. I was one of those kids. There was no doubt in my parents' mind that I was going. I had no idea why, but by golly, it happened. I'm grateful for it, grateful to Mom and Dad for helping me do that. To answer the question, I'm not sure, for me anyway, it's not a question of more kids or fewer kids as much as it is about the kids finding their path without throwing these distortions up that possibly lead them to doing something that just starts them a little bit later in life with a lot more debt that they would otherwise not have had. I don't know if that was a sufficient answer, but my thoughts on the matter.
Representative Parks, did you have a comment?
I do. I'm not in the business of throwing aid to Republicans on their bills, but, I think I got a solution for everything because I actually like his bill. I actually like him too, believe it or not. I like his bill more than I'm just kidding. But what if we were to sunset this bill, after, maybe 4 years, and then we'll have the answer to that fiscal note, but you can always just come back and, renew the sunset and let it go. That way, in 4 years, we'll know if it's more students coming in or, if there's a benefit period to your bill, because I think it's a good bill. But I did get a little chilly in here because I felt a little breeze blowing. But I think that if we were to add a sunset clause to it, it may allow, everyone to be maybe a little bit more comfortable. I'm sorry, I shouldn't have pointed you. I don't know if you're comfortable or not. Maybe allow people to be a little bit more comfortable, and we can actually revisit it, when it comes up for a sunset. So, and I don't know how you feel about that, Mr. Sponsor, but I think it's a good solution because I would like to see, if there's some benefit to this bill or not. I would love for everyone to have more of an option at life, outside of, just having to make that decision at that moment because, like I said earlier, life is not cookie cutter, and it's different for every single person in every household, every single one of those students that are in our high schools. And so, a sunset clause would create a little bit of comfort, I think, for some. So can I put that in motion, or what do I need to do?
Well, before we consider that, let me give us something else to chew on also, and if anyone else, just raise your hand. I understand the concept of the gap year. We have that in Hope Scholarships, and the young lady made a very good presentation. But what I'm concerned about, we're talking about Tennessee Promise. Tennessee Promise was established with our Drive to 55 to encourage more young people coming out of high school to go on to a higher degree, which is a TCAT or a community college. If we weren't messing with Tennessee Promise, which is last dollar, it also puts a mentorship program with that person to get young people coming out of high school to go on who may not ever have done that. So I think if you go have a balancing act between how many you may pick up of a gap year or those how many you lose, we're messing with a program set up for a particular reason, and that was to drive more people, especially of lower economic means, and give them a chance to come out of high school for a higher degree. And so that's my concern, is that we're dealing with something that it started with Tennessee Achieves, then Tennessee Promise. And then I believe it was under Governor Haslam, well, I know it was under Governor Haslam, you know, then we said, what about all those adults that missed that window, and we did the reconnect. So if we weren't talking about Tennessee Promise, I may be a little bit more inclined, but Tennessee Promise was set up specifically to drive more and more young people right out of high school. That's why we're the #1 state in the nation in FAFSA applications. You're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Mr. Chair, and I get it. I understand. I really do understand your position on it. The thing that throws a lot of us off is the fiscal note, right? You know, the fact that there is a fiscal note which tells us that somebody's going to enroll after that, right? But the missing part of the fiscal note doesn't tell us if we're going to lose students, right? And so that's what's, you know, driving the debate, I think, here in regards to that. But I totally agree with what you said, and I would like to see, you know, maybe we roll the bill a week. I don't want to step on you if you're going to speak. You want me back up off there? Okay, let me
recognize Representative Cochran.
Okay.
So I think we're on the same. So I see both sides of the argument too. I think it's a very intriguing argument whether or not it would increase or decrease enrollment. I also think the potential to maybe have it sunset or set it up as some sort of pilot would. I think that would at least warrant a little bit more debate, and so I hate to just kill this thing for a lack of time to talk about it. So I think we're out of official roles, and also we also can't verbally amend it. It's my understanding from legal to include a sunset provision to do that through a verbal amendment. So what I would recommend, and I'm just going to make that motion to roll this to the heel of the current calendar, and we'll discuss it more another day. Make a motion to roll to the heel.
Well, there's a motion before us. Any objection to that motion? Seeing none and hearing none, the motion carries. House Bill 2739 is rolled to the hill. And that means I can give the gavel back to the chairman.
Thank you, Chairman White. All right. Get that chairman hat back on. Where are we? Item number 5 on our calendar, House Bill 2814 by Representative Hardaway. Oh, Representative Love? We have a motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is a very simple piece of legislation. Simply would require THEC to notify persons who are recipients of the Minority Teacher Fellowship Scholarship that there are teaching opportunities out there in the state of Tennessee. And I've talked with THEC, and they are agreeing to, where'd Lou go? All right. Agreeing to make the steps to inform persons about teaching opportunities. As many people may know, when we make opportunities available for persons to receive a minority teacher scholarship, we ask them to teach in Tennessee to make that scholarship not convert to a loan. And so this is just another way to let them know about teaching opportunities. Very simple piece of legislation. With that, I renew my motion.
We have a question on the bill. Can I get you to hang on for just 1 second on that? Thank you for that. What's wrong? I missed the first couple of lines of that. This is an attempt to help the teachers find where they could land?
Correct. So when we provide minority teacher fellowship grants, one of the requirements is that persons actually go and teach. This is a way to help them locate teaching opportunities in Tennessee. And in speaking with THEC, Lou, he's agreed that they can do this. Again, it's a way to help our recipients of this fellowship be able to find more teaching opportunities in Tennessee.
Rather than carry that out through THEC, why not the institution where the studies take place? Why wouldn't they, if they're teaching the program, surely they would know how to send, how to direct teachers to opportunities.
So let's take our teacher prep schools. Student goes through that school, the student graduates, the student prepared to go and teach. They may know of some teaching opportunities, but may not be aware of all the teaching opportunities. So this does not absolve that institution from doing that. It simply adds another organization in the process of helping students locate teaching opportunities.
So kind of a bigger picture, bigger window to look through.
Yes.
Okay. Members, are there any questions? Chairman White, you're recognized.
You know better than to pick up a Hardaway bill, don't you?
This is Lenten season,
Yeah, okay.
Chairman White. 40 days of trying to be better. So I'm on day 5.
He owes you one.
Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, I heard a call for the question. Members, we are voting on House Bill 2814. All those in the affirmative, please indicate by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? The ayes have it.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and committee members.
Yes, sir. Moving on to our Education Administration. Next up, we have House Bill 2816. I have a motion. Do I have a second? Second. Got it. Motion and seconded. Representative Hardaway, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Still trying to get over Chairman White's comment. Mr. Chairman, the bill before you is not in its best form, and I actually have an untimely amendment that needs to go on it in order for us to have a proper discussion.
All right. You have one untimely or two untimelies?
Actually, Mr. Chairman, we're only going to use one untimely.
Okay.
And that's drafting number 015122.
All right, we have motion and second on hearing the amendment. Please.
Mr. Chairman, the bill as amended would establish a fellowship program for future law enforcement officers. And law enforcement, I probably should say personnel, because there are many careers in law enforcement that would range from the field operations to the lab, could be information systems, or it could be counseling, psychological, psychiatric issues. So the TSAC would administer the Law Enforcement Fellows Program. It would be for talented students who aspire to have a career, those who choose to participate in the program would have to be college juniors, seniors, or a post-baccalaureate candidate.
Were you done with your explanation of the amendment?
Yes, sir. I can take it up on the bill itself.
Okay, we have a motion to add the amendment. We got a second. All right, all those in favor of adding amendment number 15122 to the bill indicate by saying aye. Any opposed? Ayes have it. Amendment's on the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This bill would help to build the bench that we need in Tennessee for qualified, committed law enforcement career personnel, as opposed to those who are seeking a job in law enforcement. As you know, we have other fellows programs, and it's designed to get to the student early on to build that interest, to build that commitment to a career, and to instill those talents so that they will grow into it. I could go on and on, but as Chairman White's insinuated, brevity would probably be my best bet.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Thank you very much. Chairman, did TSAC put their name on the list to speak since their name's mentioned they did? Would you permit us to go out of session to ask TSAC some questions?
We can do that without objection. We're out of session. Wherever you're comfortable, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please identify yourself for the record. And
Yeah, Lou Hanneman with the Tennessee Student Assistance Corporation and Higher Education Commission.
Okay. And Chairman White, did you want to go ahead and open with a question?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hanneman, since the bill says requires TSAC to administer a law enforcement fellows program, could you give us TSAC's position on this?
So we would be deferred on the addition of any new program to the financial aid portfolio for the state. I will say we do have some thoughts about it, for sure. The first of which is we have been slowly trying to pull ourselves out of the student loan business, particularly the clawback loan business. We have 2 remaining such programs in the state, and the amendment, I believe, is language modeled off of the Minority Teaching Fellows program, which is also a loan forgiveness program. These are, should you opt not to continue a degree program or not to provide the service agreement, then your scholarship monies, the $5,000 per year, is then converted into a loan that needs to be repaid back to the state at 9%. We have, as I mentioned, tried to slowly pull ourselves out of that. As it relates to this particular program, I would just say 2 things. One, in our conversations with the law enforcement community, the number of degree programs that are now lending themselves towards a career in law enforcement are increasing in number, and it's no longer a day where a criminal justice degree is the degree for law enforcement. They are looking for degrees across the entire array of the academic enterprise, which would, I think, grow this program fiscally to a pretty large number. The other piece of it is we don't, again, we don't fully understand what those degree programs should be. And so I know TSAC would be charged with kind of developing what those degree programs would be for the purposes of this, and that would certainly be done in consultation with our law enforcement stakeholders, which we are already on course to have a work study with this summer to look at ways to align law enforcement needs with higher education. And so I would just leave it at that.
You're recognized.
Just one follow-up. When you said that TSAC's trying to pull out of the student loan program, by enacting a bill like this, how does this affect? Make sure I fully understand.
So once upon a time, Tennessee was, the TSAC was the guarantor of all student loans, and then that part was pulled out by the Fed, and we have, only in the last few years kind of divested ourselves of that portfolio. The only remaining loan relationships we have now with students are through these loan forgiveness type programs. If you'll remember, in the FAST Act, we wound down a couple of those programs and then made changes to the minority teaching fellowship to move that out of freshmen and sophomores and on to juniors and seniors and graduate students. When a student begins this program, begins to receive financial aid under these programs, and should they either drop out, change their major, or opt out of completing the one-to-one service requirement, i.e. a year in law enforcement for each year of receiving the aid, then all of the monies that they have been given in terms of scholarship funds convert to a loan, which they will then have to repay. It's particularly problematic for a student who leaves school prior to earning a degree. So then they're left with no credential and a student loan back to the state, to an agency that, you know, truly would rather be out of the loan business than in.
I don't know if anyone else have a question? Representative Parkinson, you're recognized.
Thank you for that, sir. I'm still trying to hear the deferred language because I didn't hear anything deferred. I heard everything against this bill.
Well, they are administrative concerns, but to be clear, the bill, if it moves, we will administer, much as we do the current programs, and we will figure out a way. As far as the degree programs, as I mentioned, we already have a working group scheduled to start this spring. In fact, our first meeting is probably going to be on March 24th with law enforcement officers and some other stakeholders across the state to begin thinking about ways to align. We will work with that group to figure out which degree programs would best fit this type of program should this be implemented. So when I say deferred, what I mean is, from an administrative standpoint, we absolutely will defer to the will of the General Assembly.
Well, that's with every bill. You defer to the will of the General Assembly, you know, but you know, to, you know, hear on the front end that you deferred and then hear every other point is you have issue with the bill, that doesn't sound like deferred to me. It sounds like you're against it. And I'm you know, I'm not the only one hearing this up here. Yeah, and you know, but let me ask you this question: will this do you think it'll add more officers to our streets if we have this program in place?
I truly don't know the answer to that question.
Okay. All right. Well, I'll ask that back on the bill. So, Mr. Chair, if you're recognizing me on the bill. Okay. Thank you, sir.
Any other questions from the members? I made these comments a little bit earlier. This is another one of those, you're squeezing in one place and you don't know what's going to end up bubbling in the other by trying to, my 2 cents, you're trying to direct people into a program that they may get a year or two into and then go, I don't want to do this, and then these kids are strapped with debt, no career, no certificate, no degree. Anyway, that's my 2 cents on the whole thing. Any other questions for our guest? Seeing none, all right, thank you for that. We'll go back in session. Representative Hardaway, I'm sorry, Representative Parkinson, you are recognized. and
Can we reconsider our actions from the previous bill? He just called me Representative Hardaway. I'm just kidding. So, you know, my dear friend Speaker Harwell used to do that all the time, and I would have to meet with her after session to discuss it with her and get a little counseling. But here's my dilemma. You know, we just passed a bill on the House floor that's, you know, allowed Memphis to be targeted in regards to residency because of such a big issue in regards to crime and murders. Because they, you know, the number 343 was told to me multiple times on the House floor, right? And I live there amongst those 343.
Please,
yeah,
question to the bill,
on the
please.
bill. Yes, sir. I'm on the bill. I just helped you on your bill now. Relax now, Mr. Chairman. I'm just kidding. So I would have thought that, you know, if we bring a bill, or Chairman Hardaway's bill, and I hadn't seen this bill before today, if we bring a bill that would give us another avenue to add more law enforcement officers to our streets, that everybody would be excited about it. And I'm not really, I don't get the apprehension, you know, outside of technicalities, but we can be technical on every single bill that comes through here and find a reason why we can't support it technically. But if this bill will add more, give us an opportunity to add more officers, which we have a deficit of in our state, then I think that we should support this bill and get it through so that we can do just that. I was talked down on the House floor.
Is there a question for the?
Well, yeah, Mr. Sponsor, will this bill, if enacted, add more officers to our communities?
That's my.
You're recognized.
Thank you for the question, and that's my belief. Mr. Chairman, I don't understand the comments. It was my understanding that the language, which is in the amendment, that came from TSAC, that it addressed their initial concerns. I don't think there is any program that you administer to young folk where you're going to have 100% completion, cooperation, interest, whatever. This is in response to the overwhelming increase in criminal activity in my community, and I dare say in yours, because it's statewide. There is no invisible fence that will keep criminals from riding those interstates and back roads from one end of the state to the other. That's what this bill is designed to do. If it causes a little extra work for TSAC, not trying to be ugly, Mr. Chairman, but that's what they get paid for. Okay? We are paying in Memphis a $15,000 bonus for Memphis candidates for law enforcement. We can pay monies then for candidates that we aren't sure about, or we can pursue this road, which will give us a chance to actually qualify young folks to move forward in a career who are from the community and who have the best interests of the community at heart, and they've been trained in Tennessee.
Thank you for that. We are over time right now, and we've got another committee waiting on us. I'll give you one more question if you make it brief.
I don't have a question, just a comment. This bill will actually benefit THP also, and we need them officers in there. Thank you
for that. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we're going to go ahead and vote on House Bill 2816. All those in favor of passing House Bill 2816 indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. The ayes have it. You'll be moving on to Education Administration.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for committee members for having that vision.
Okay, and we're going to put. We have run out of time. The remainder of the bills are going to be rolled to the Hill. Do I have a motion to adjourn? We're adjourned.